This is the 217 Recovery Podcast with Corey Winfield.
You have a rich person's name. Like, you should be a billionaire with the name Winfield. Anyway, call me back, bro.
May 15th, 2022. My name's Corey Winfield, and this is the 217 Recovery Podcast. Special episode today. So, last month we were out at the Traverse Area District Library. They wanted us there, and we were doing our outreach program. Some call it outreach. I like to call it community opportunities, because we offer a lot of opportunities for people in the community that maybe they didn't know about, from getting a phone to the best way to go to treatment, and we're not just giving out pamphlets. We do have tons of information, tons of pamphlets to hand out, which we did last month. We handed out some of those and some Narcan kits, and one gentleman who drove by and said his grandson had a substance use disorder and he wanted some information on it. He was glad we were there. He thanked us for being there, and it was a good time. And we were told, hold on, we might not go this month. And well, why? Well, what are your credentials, Corey? What? I got tons of them. What do you mean? Like, I'm a recovery coach. I took suicide prevention training, assist training. There's trainings I've taken that I don't even remember. There's a lot of them. You know what I'm saying? So, and I have 3.5 years clean almost. So what do you mean? What are my credentials? Like, I know what these people need to do to get help. That's what we're there for. We're offering opportunities to people that might not know they're there. Just because someone lives in a homeless shelter or in a tent behind the homeless shelter doesn't mean that's because they want to. And that's because they've been trying their ass off to get into a house. Some of them are, but not all of them. Not everybody knows the resources and what you need to do to get yourself out of that situation. And it's very hopeless sometimes. Tyrone spent 7 months there. He gets it. He knows 100% in the same area. So to say that we don't have the credentials, okay. But yeah, so we were told that, and I decided I was going to listen into one of their board meetings to try to understand what they were talking about and why maybe they wouldn't want us there. It really didn't make sense to me at all. But they called the podcast Inappropriate, which again, I really don't think they understand who we're talking to. And it kind of makes me wonder if they know who they're talking to. So one of the trustees apparently said that stuff about us, and I don't know which one it is. And it would be very irresponsible of me to start naming people. So I'm not going to do that, but we are going to listen in a little bit to their board meeting. I'll share some stuff with you. And I didn't chop it up and make them sound silly. This is what they actually said at their board meeting last month, April 21st, 2022. And we'll start it off with a gentleman talking about, I guess, doing some research.
So I spent the last month, I talked to police officers and spoke with people from Goodwill and Safe Harbor and city council and county commissioners to try and get a broader perspective. And certainly what I saw from that was that the pandemic had the effect of closing any kind of day shelters beyond Safe Harbor, and that there's a desire for that day shelter to come back. I don't think that we'll have I think this is a very good document, and I think it'll help clarify for people the need for it. So that's another piece of useful data to the conversation, but I don't think that we'll have a lot of leverage in the conversation. But the one thing that, having listened to some police officers, I feel like we're underserved considering the number of times they've been brought here. And it seems if this were, I don't think that they don't want to attend to it, but I think because of the high number of incidents, we should be seeing police on staff around here. I think they should be here. Their presence should be on site for periods of time, extended periods of time. And from what I understand, the Downtown Development Authority is paying for additional community policing. I'm not sure that we should be paying for that service, but I think we should have a community police officer, if not stationed directly here at the library, then someplace where they can be attending to reducing those numbers. So that's what I took away from what I looked into. I would really like to see a community policing officer more available to this district.
All right, so add some police to the staff, keep them around the building, some security guards. Okay, you got to keep your staff safe. That's cool. But have you thought about maybe social workers, to help these people out when you do see them come in there, and maybe help them or assist them, finding help? I mean, that's kind of what we offer. Yeah, there's a treatment center in town. I know they have interns that would get college credit for helping out with that. Just throwing it out there. But he also was asked if he had talked to any officials and what was their response, or what were their thoughts about the situation, and maybe who could help.
Oh, I just wondered, in those discussions you had with the city and county.
It wasn't the city, it was specific city councilman.
Well, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Did you get any feelings or feedback as to what their view of what their view of our situation is? I mean, are they, well, that's just the way it is. You got to learn to, step it up and.
No.
Or is it,
I think
we ought to be able to get in there and do something?
I don't think on the county or the city level, although they would be willing to participate, it felt to me, this is my opinion being expressed here, it felt to me like there was expectations that nonprofits would be the driving force in trying to identify what resources were needed. Then they may be able to come to the table and help support that.
Oh, you do know 217 Recovery is a nonprofit, right? And we'd like to help people. Okay, just making sure everybody's on the same page here. So the day shelters, one is closed, the other's open. There's still a ton of people. What's going on? What's going on with the day shelters? Is it a money issue?
I think that at least in the case of the city council, they were aware that there was previously resources available for a day center, or multiple day centers, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they call it Pete's Place. And then when the churches were available, then there were some churches that provided access for day shelter. But those closed during the pandemic, and so they haven't reestablished, primarily because of a lack of volunteers.
I can also say that one of those temporary day shelters, Paul, is Jubilee House, and I can say from my involvement with Grace Episcopal that they faced what we've faced here in the library, which is volunteer people of retirement age primarily being overwhelmed by horrible behavior. So yeah, there are these pockets, these various small places, but they're inadequate.
Yeah, and part of them being not adequate, or they're not equipped with the right things for those people. Think about why those people are coming there. Okay, what service can you provide them? That's not your job, but this is what's happening at your place of work and in your city. So you have to adapt to it. Otherwise, it's just going to become a bigger problem. At 217 Recovery, we have offered to come help, to come talk to these people, and not everyone will want to go to treatment. Not everyone will want to go get help with their mental health. Some people just want to be pointed in the right direction to how do I actually get housing instead of being put on a list where I'm 80th, being told, it'll be 2.5 years for you to find a place. Well, Tyrone found a place. Tyrone lived at the Goodwill Inn for 7 months. He found a place. is hard work, determination. And some people need a little hope. Now, there was another woman who was asked about her conversation with the mayor and his office. And the mayor of Traverse City is Richard Lewis. And here's that part of it.
Wondered about your conversation with Richard Lewis that you mentioned in one of your reports. If, to build on what Paul's saying, if we're any further, you talked about in the last month since our board meeting, we have an increase of 10 extra incidents, including one where you had to get the prosecutor involved. So maybe give us a little input, and then Mike, I want to hear.
Kind of like Paul. Well, with Richard, he understands it. He's trying to figure out, what is the coalition to be done. And, I have to admit, like when I've talked to Safe Harbor or Goodwill, no one really feels like it's their mission. I don't know if the city thinks it's their mission either. When I met with Amy Shamrow, because she's also on the Friends board, just, her eyes were just opened and, just knows how bad it is. And, just like, how do we compel Safe Harbor to do something? Is it, people are talking like, well, is this an alteration of their SLUP? To say like, you've got too many people there and we can't take it. When I've talked to the police, they feel frustrated because that original SLUP was awarded to them with the idea that they would actually build housing in that spot, and then they would only have 5 transitional beds. That was the plan, and that's what the police chief says our community, could handle is housing, and then 5 transitional beds, not 60 transitional beds. And so, and I talked to Marty Coburn, city manager, so a lot of people feel frustrated that the plan for housing has never come forward in 5 years. Like, no plan is even made, no architect, nothing. And so a lot of people are feeling frustration by that they're not doing what they said they would.
And I can't really speak on any of that because I don't really know what they were given and what they were supposed to do. But I do know that if 217 Recovery is involved in something, we're going to do what we say we're going to do. And that's just kind of bottom line. I don't know if that's just because we're clean and sober now, we're living new lives. Like, this whole new life thing is amazing. Anybody in recovery, you know what I'm talking about. You hit the ground running, and you just take off with it. And when you finally, it all clicks, you're just living a different life. So yeah, a lot of people, yeah, I'll do that. I can speak for me. I can speak for my wife. I can speak for Tyrone. I can speak for my friend Justin. We say something, we're going to do it. And if we're not going to do it, we'll tell you we're not going to do it. We're not going to beat around the bush like we used to. Anyway, let's get back into the Traverse Area District Library board meeting.
Captain Gillis and the police are exhausted too. I mean, like between here, the boathouse, and Safe Harbor, over 300 calls in 4 months. Like, they're tired too. They don't know the answer. But what's currently happening is not the answer.
Do we know why Safe Harbor withdrew their extension?
There was a huge swell of resistance.
Pushback.
Like the neighborhood, especially the neighborhood, the gardens, the sailing camp. I haven't talked to Ben at sailing camp, but apparently he has horror stories. Like, he doesn't allow the kids to use the bathroom alone at sailing camp. Like, he doesn't even let his high schoolers take the kids into the bathroom. He takes the kids himself into the bathrooms, or he has an adult do that because of what they've seen in those bathrooms all summer long. So there was just a huge pushback to that, even though they are going to ask to open September 13th, which I, again, would oppose because as soon as they open, that's, you see the chart, it's like, that's when we just skyrocket.
Thanks, Michelle. Michael?
Barely had her hand up.
I have a question for you, Michelle.
Yeah.
So when you were talking to Mr. Lewis, and he was saying that nothing has come forward, does that mean that there aren't finding grants or whatever that needs to be put into place? Or, to build specialized housing, usually you can get grants and stuff, but is nobody working on that? So whose responsibility is that then?
Well, I think that's the big question, right? It's like, who's going to do it? And,
Okay, we're not.
Say, no, we're not. And Safe Harbor was put on, the Safe Harbor, I think the city gave that property next to Safe Harbor to them to build that housing, and they just haven't done it.
And again, here we are, willing to help, willing to be a part of a solution here. And I think a great idea, again, just top of the head, throwing it out there, a day center that's open, that has recovery meetings, that has staff that can actually help people find what they're looking for, whether it be a job, whether it be treatment. Again, there's so many things that people need and everybody's different. But to have social workers, like as mentioned earlier, interns, willing to help people. And it seems that there's money or grants, funding, resources, whatever you want to say, out there. We're here. But yet we're told we're not welcome at the library because we're not qualified. We don't have the credentials, and the podcast is inappropriate. What are some solutions then?
We really require a short-term solution, and it was made clear to me, and from Ryan Hannon and John Sabastini, who both are outreach folks, that there's only a small portion, which I'm still trying to understand, a small portion of that homeless community that is causing the problems, which leads me to wonder why we aren't managing that small portion better, which brings me back to the police interaction.
Yeah, yeah, why not? Yeah, imagine that. Not all people are bad, and sometimes it's a small percentage of them that give everybody a bad name. Imagine that. Yeah. And again, are they suffering from a substance use disorder? Could that be a solution for some? Absolutely. Yeah, but I did start to get a sense of optimism and hope.
So I don't want us to get boxed into defending our behavior policies. I mean, when you mentioned speaking with the commissioner in our last meeting, his question was, do you have behavior policies? Yeah, that's all we have.
Right.
That's it. And it's not adequate to doing anything other than addressing, the episode at the moment. It doesn't do anything to solve the problem in the larger sense of it.
All right, so it sounds like somebody wants to do something about the problem, not just kick people out, tell them they can't go to the library because behavior or because they smell bad. Somebody actually wants to do something. Maybe, again, 217 Recovery, we do a little outreach, community opportunities. We're a nonprofit organization, a recovery community organization in Michigan, one of 18. And we're right here in your home city, and we're wanting to help. But we're told we weren't wanted. One of the trustees said we didn't have the credentials, and our podcast is inappropriate. But I don't know. What are you guys going to do now?
Is there anything that can be done to help foster an enduring conversation between the potentially responsible parties who are charged with the responsibility of meeting the health and safety needs of the community, including this population of people? It is wishful thinking, if not disingenuous, to suggest that this particular problem will be solved by Safe Harbor. Right. And it's unfair to put the burden of this problem on any one agency, library, Safe Harbor, whatever. It's just simply unacceptable. And that's that clarity in what we're saying, I would like to exist. That as the library board wants to say that the status quo of saying the right things and hoping somebody comes up with an idea will happen is simply, there's no reason to expect that to be effective. It's just the way political institutions work, and everybody understands why, right? It's not entirely a terrible thing. It's the way, we're slow at, allocating resources to solve big problems. Well, it's a big problem, and it has been slow for a long time, and it is time, I would suggest, that we do all hands on deck and see what we can do to make Traverse City community and Grand Traverse County a model institutional a model of institutional collaboration and cooperation in meeting the needs of citizens and residents who are in incredibly deep need of housing, health, and security.
Wow, what he's saying is pretty good. You know, all hands on deck. Let's get people in the community involved and get these organizations to just come together and work together. And you know what? I think he might be misinformed. I mean, what he's saying sounds good, but at the end of the day, we were told not to come. So again, very, very confused. Maybe he's just that misinformed. I don't know. Like, what trustee is really running the place? That's kind of what I want to know. Like, who told us we couldn't be there? Because that guy, it sounds like he wants us there. He wants people to help. I mean, the community knows about it. You're gonna have to do something.
The community knows. Like, there was a whole discussion on Overheard in Traverse City this week that I jumped in and responded to. Same thing. A parent shows up and is like, "Since when do we have security guards?" You know, and I know Jeff commented, and so the community is out there. You know, it'll generate probably some press, and you know, people will want to talk about it. But I think that's our first step in compelling people to do something, and maybe this idea that, well, we don't have a person stepping forward to act. Maybe this will. Yeah. Maybe this will be it. You know, maybe at least it's something. And then maybe people were like, whoa, I didn't realize, because, you know, I run in, I get my books on hold, I leave. But, you know, everybody I talk to is like, I saw this woman the other day and she's like, you know, every time I come to the library, if I see you, you're talking to the police. It's like, I know. She's like, every time she comes, the police are here.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want them saying, man, every time we come here, we see somebody trying to help somebody. Yeah, we wouldn't want that to happen. Mm-mm. Yeah, if only people could get involved, or people would want to get involved and help out, you know? Damn, where could we find a organization like that?
Instead of framing it as this is not what we do, this is in fact what we do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, that's the point. This is what we do, and it is not what we are charged to do through the sort of our mandate to operate as a taxing authority to provide library services to the community. The board would be taking a principled decision entirely consistent with its one and only role, and that is its fiduciary responsibility to the well-being of the library as a future asset that transfers from this moment to those in the future. And that's the reason why we have to say something. And on that matter of who we say it to, I think getting it out there is probably a good idea when people are happy with, you know, the what's going to show up with our names on it. But the other thing is that it provides backing for any time Michelle is called upon or asked or has an opportunity to address the audiences that she does all the time, does a beautiful job and so on. But there would be the ability to say, our board has taken this seriously. I mean, we are committed as an institution to participating fully and cooperatively with any and all parties who wish to step up and take responsibility and own that this is what we are now. Is this okay? Is this as good as we can do? But own that and stop turning away from it.
So this really makes me wonder, after listening to the Traverse Area Public Library board meeting, it sounds like he wants to do good things. Is he left in the dark, or is the other trustee who didn't want 217 recovery there, are they going rogue? Are they thinking, oh, they're going to pass out needles. They're doing harm reduction. We don't need needles floating around here. When we went to the library, we didn't pass out any needles. We just passed out Narcan and pamphlets. And we actually got a guy in contact with Sober Living Place. So, yeah, we were helping. I don't know. Yeah, you can only help where you're wanted, I guess.
So even though we get some people sober, or we get some people the mental health that they need, it isn't ever going to go away. There will always be a percentage of our population. And so putting together a plan and then refining it over time is what the city and the county need to do, and then the nonprofits and stuff. So right now I feel like we're the canary in the coal mine. And part of the whole nursing process is to avoid complications. So it's prevention, intervention, blah, blah, blah. But because I don't want people to just think, oh, if they only got off drugs, or if they only stopped drinking, or if they only got a job. It's not that easy.
Well, let's just start with education, okay? We can start with that. In my personal opinion, if we educate the youth on addiction, on drugs, it could be a preventative measure. You know, I've never heard prevention, intervention, blah, blah, blah before, but I don't know. I haven't seen that person's credentials, and she's speaking like she knows what she's talking about. So maybe she's the expert on this, and I'm not. You know, I'm just a person who's living in recovery, who battled addiction and had a hell of a time with it, and now is on the other side doing great things and doing a podcast because it keeps me sober, not because it makes me money. I do this to stay sober. And for them to say that the podcast was inappropriate and to shun us away from doing what we do to help people, it's sad. It really is. And hopefully they can start with education. I don't think it would hurt to educate people once a week on addiction. I think that's where we should start. Good luck, library.
Thanks for listening to the 217 Recovery Podcast. Don't forget to check out our special episodes found only on the 217 Recovery app.